Alright, Scooby-Doo Zombie Island.
Now this movie is well known for traumatizing an entire generation of kids, but what most people don't know is that it is full of real-life secrets. And all the clues found in the movie actually expose a real-life mystery.
This movie came out in 1998 and is unlike any Scooby-Doo movie or TV show.
It contains heavy themes of death and ritual human sacrifice while still being rated for children ages 3 to 7. Unlike all other Scooby-Doo mysteries, there are no bad guys in masks, only real dead people. And every single one of them can be linked to a real-life person. This movie takes place in the bayous of Louisiana on an island called Moonscar Island, named after the pirate Morgan Moonscar who buried his treasure there. The island is owned by this woman named Simone who lives there in her mansion along with her cook, Lena. In secret tunnels under the island, the two of them worship a cat god idol, making human sacrifices every harvest moon in order to preserve their immortality. Basically, what I'm about to show you is that this island, this house, this pirate, and these events are all real. The whole plot of this movie centers around the fact that every Scooby-Doo villain is always somebody in a mask and the monsters are never real. In this seemingly self-aware movie, the Mystery Inc. gang sets out on a filmmaking mission that will document proof of real-life ghosts and mysteries.
Bad guys in masks, mechanical claws, magnets, hologram projectors. Just like the good old days. Too much like the good old days. I've got a show to do. I need a real live ghost.
These themes of finding a real-life mystery, along with the fact that all the ghosts and zombies are real dead people instead of bad guys in masks, dog whistles a message to the viewer that this movie is hiding real-life secrets. Now let's get into the horrifying real secrets hidden in this movie.
Is your house really
haunted? Yes. It is an old house with restless spirits.
The haunted mansion that is lived in by the cat idol worshippers is based off the Shadows on the Tech Museum. Located in Iberia Parish, Louisiana, this former plantation home of 4 generations is the most recognizable symbol of the area, hinting at the location of the movie.
Your house is simply beautiful, Ms. Lenoir. Isn't it, Fred?
Picture perfect. Just how old is it?
It has been in my family for generations. It was a pepper plantation. Some of the hottest peppers in Louisiana grow on this island.
So also located in Iberia Parish, Louisiana, we have this place called Avery Island. Avery Island is one of the most famous pepper plantations in the world and is the birthplace of Tabasco sauce.
Over the years, boats continued to come to our island. One was full of spice traders who started a pepper plantation. The plantation flourished.
At least until the harvest moon.
This is Edmund McKinney, the spice trader who created the pepper plantation on Avery Island that would eventually become the Tabasco sauce brand. In 1859, he married Mary Eliza Avery, starting the bloodline and namesake that still inhabits Avery Island today. The building under construction in the movie flashback is the Marsh House and was Edmund and Mary's real home on the island. In the movie, the ritual human sacrifices take place beneath the island in secret caverns and tunnels. Likewise, the real-life Avery Island sits on top of a salt dome famous for its caverns and tunnels which extend over 2,000 feet below the surface of the island. One of the first examples of a real ghost we see in this movie is this Confederate Civil War colonel. It is later discovered by Velma that the mirror once belonged to Colonel Jackson T. Pettigrew, who served in the 8th Louisiana. Now, the real-life colonel of the 8th Louisiana is this man, Francis T. Nichols. He even shares the same middle initial with the fictional ghost from the movie. However, this ghost represents Dudley Avery, grandson of Edmund McKinney and lieutenant of the 18th Louisiana Infantry. You can even see here, it appears Velma's finger is covering the 1 in 18 that would complete this inscription.
There were Confederate barracks on this island.
Located in Iberia Parish, Louisiana, the same place as Avery Island, we have this real Confederate war camp called Camp Pratt. Another undeniable similarity between the movie and real life that explains the presence of both Union and Confederate zombies is that in 1863, the real-life Avery Island was overtaken by Union troops who burned 18 buildings to the ground, destroying and stealing everything they found there. In addition to all the real-life people, places, and events referenced in Scooby-Doo, we also have lots of references to other movies. Here, we have these Civil War zombies that are supposed to represent the soldiers from the 1955 movie Yellowneck. As an example, we see this Confederate colonel with a red beard is based off of the red-bearded colonel from Yellowneck. Just like most films, many of the scenes and a lot of the dialogue are taken directly from these older movies and put into Scooby-Doo. If you are able to make these connections and put the clues together, you can reveal further secrets hidden in the film. These 2 Union soldiers are based on the 2 dead Union soldiers found in the watering hole in Yellowneck. So, during these underground sacrifice rituals, the cat worshippers are turned into these horrific cat werewolf creatures. In real-life mythology, these creatures are known as Valvalicas. Similar to both vampires and werewolves, the legends of Valvalicas are Greek, Slavic, and Serbian in origin. Now, this idea of werewolf creatures on Avery Island, Louisiana is not limited to just Scooby-Doo Zombie Island. First, we have this 1972 film, Moon of the Wolf, that tells the story of a wealthy aristocratic family that lives in a mansion on an island in the Louisiana bayous. This family is likewise cursed by a disease that turns them into werewolves. The cover art of this movie is even subliminally hidden on the Scooby-Doo Zombie Island cover art. According to old legend and modern-day cryptozoologists, a werewolf-like creature known as the Rougarou supposedly lives in the swamps of Louisiana. One of the oldest and most popular movies to include the theme of werecat creatures is the 1942 film Cat People. The part of the main character that is cursed to transform into a werecat creature is played by a woman literally named Simone, the exact same as Scooby-Doo.
Please, call me Simone.
Here we have Simone, the star of Cat People, as one of the zombies in Scooby-Doo. She is shown wearing her recognizable headband and the skin of a Black Panther. In the movie, she transforms into a Black Panther werecat and murders whenever she is aroused. So, who is this mysterious cat-worshipping cult? What is their backstory and where do they come from? In the 1942 film Cat People, we are told the true story of St. John of Serbia and the real historically accurate account of the cat worshippers.
King John of Serbia. He was a fine king. He drove the Mamelukes out of Serbia and freed the people.
Well, why have this around?
Well, perhaps you have in your room a picture of George Washington or Abraham Lincoln.
Well, what does it mean? Why is he spearing that cat?
Oh, it's not really a cat. It's meant to represent the evil ways into which my village had once fallen. You see, The Mamelukes came to Serbia long ago, and they made the people slaves. Well, at first, the people were good and worshipped God in a true Christian way. But little by little, the people changed. When King John drove out the Mamelukes and came to our village, he found dreadful things. People bowed down to Satan and said their masses to him. They had become witches and were evil. Well, King John put some of them to the sword, but some, the wisest and the most wicked, escaped into the mountains.
Now, if we take a look at the living room of the mansion on Moonscar Island, we can clearly see the statue of King John from Cat People 1942 present on the mantelpiece. For a brief moment in the 1942 Cat People movie, we are shown this Egyptian-style cat god statue. This cat god statue is obviously represented in the Scooby-Doo movie, and they are both meant to represent the ancient Egyptian cat goddess, Bast.
I was one of a group of settlers who made this island our home. We looked to our cat god for a bountiful harvest.
The ancient Egyptian cult of Bast started around 3000 BC and flourished for thousands of years. They worshipped cats, even making human sacrifices in their honor. According to ancient Greek historian Herodotus, who recorded the only first-hand source we have of the annual festival of Bast, the cat worshippers would eat, drink, dance, make sacrifices to their god, all while playing instruments, while those without instruments clap their hands along to the music. The necklace that Simone wears in Scooby-Doo is called an Amulet of Bast, and its inspiration comes from the 1973 movie The Cat Creature. This movie was openly made as a tribute to the earlier Cat People movie and goes into great detail about the cult of Bast and their practices and beliefs.
What is it? A symbol. Symbol of Bast.
Bast?
The great cat-headed goddess of Lower Egypt.
Cat goddess?
Oh, yes. The cult of Bast flourished for centuries. Then around 400 BC, it was stamped out. Its priests were hunted down and buried alive.
Why?
Well, mainly because they believed that in return for human sacrifices, the goddess could grant them eternal life. And they were also supposed to have the power to turn into cats.
What are you trying to make of all of this?
Just giving you the historical facts, Lieutenant.
These two films have a lot in common, even the ending, with the amulet wearer being turned into a pile of dust after the curse is broken. Now, the original Cat People movie draws a lot of its inspiration from a book published in 1906 called Ancient Sorceries. This book is written by a very famous author named Algernon Blackwood. I even believe that this might be his zombie doppelganger from the Scooby-Doo movie. The book is set in France, and it's about a cult of Satan worshippers who turn into werecat creatures under a full moon. Obviously, Louisiana has a major French influence, and the legends of werewolves in France, said to have been cursed accidentally by themselves, line up with the cat worshippers' backstory from Scooby-Doo, as well as Simone's incredibly thick French accent.
Only afterwards did we discover that invoking the cat god's power had cursed us as well.
The strange connections continue with the 1939 film The Cat and the Canary, starring Bob Hope. This movie takes place in a haunted mansion on an island in the middle of the Louisiana bayous. The characters in this film are terrorized by an escaped mental patient known as the Cat, who is described as some sort of mentally disturbed werecat person.
We are still waiting to hear what he looks like.
Oh, well, he's about 40. But strong as a tiger. He has sharp teeth and long fingers and fingernails like claws. And when he's violent, He crawls around on all fours like a...
Like an animal?
Yes, sir. Like a cat.
The original Cat and Canary movie was a silent film released in 1927, and it's where we get this blue-tinted castle from. Both films are based off of the 1922 stage play, The Cat and the Canary, by John Willard. This zombie is supposed to represent the escaped mental patient known as the Cat from the early Cat and Canary films. One common theme is the discovery of a priceless necklace hidden somewhere on the island. In the Bob Hope version, the treasure is hidden under a statue of Cupid.
Affection, Venus, the goddess of love. Say, is there a statue of Venus around this
I
joint
don't know.
anywhere?
Wait. Look. The fountain.
Cupid, sure. Venus, little problem child. Let's go.
If we look again to the living room in the Scooby-Doo movie, we can clearly see a statue of Cupid here next to the lamp. There's also a half-naked statue of Venus shown here in the children's movie, as well as this portrait over the fireplace that is supposed to represent the portrait of Cyrus West that can be found over the fireplaces of all the Cat and Canary films. The painting above his appears to be of a woman, and while we never get to see her face, I'm pretty confident it's supposed to represent the painting of Marie Latour from the 1944 film Cry of the Werewolf. Marie Latour is of course a werewolf, and once again this movie takes place in Louisiana.
A woman of mystery. She was the mistress of this house, and her name was Marie Latour. And she was a werewolf. The tradition of werewolves and vampires dates back almost to the world's earliest recorded history. Of the two, the werewolf is perhaps the most horrible because the instinct for evil is so strong that they willingly and cunningly assume the shape of a beast in order to kill. It was during these times that farmers complained of seeing a wolf with flashing eyes that killed their cattle and sheep. Every effort was made to track the creature down, but it was George Latour who learned the truth at last. He discovered the muddy footprints of an animal leading to his house. He followed them to his wife's room. The servants upstairs, hearing screams, rushed up and found their master's mangled body. Over him stood a terrible animal with flaming, dripping jaws. This creature, seeing them, turned and fled through a window. Ladies and gentlemen, that creature, that thing, was Marie Latour. She's never been seen from that day to this. No one knows what became of her. This room has been kept just as she left it. The clock on the mantel there has never struck the hour since. The hands are stopped on the exact moment she struck her husband down. Well, you've heard her story, seen her effects. Now here is her picture. Ladies and gentlemen, Marie Latour. Well, that's the signal for the closing of the museum. Thank you for your attention, ladies and gentlemen.
The strangest part of this movie connection is that the mansion lived in by Marie Latour is also a museum, exactly like how the mansion in Scooby-Doo is based on the shadows on the Tech Museum. In The Cry of the Wolf, this museum is used by a werewolf and her cult, just like Scooby-Doo. Next, we have the 1992 film Sleepwalkers, based off of the Stephen King novel by the same name, including obvious references to ancient Egypt Bast worship. It tells a story of a mother and son who travel around America killing young people in order to preserve their immortality. They likewise transform into werecat creatures, and tons of stray cats follow them wherever they go, just like in Scooby-Doo. This figure of a man next to the statue of King John, in my opinion, is supposed to represent the figurines from Sleepwalkers.
Very beautiful home, Mrs. Brady. Mm-hmm. Oh. Wow, these are beautiful figurines.
Oh, they've been in the family for a long time.
You probably wouldn't believe how long.
Mom, we really ought to be going.
Now, by far the most obvious and blatant example of a doppelganger film is the 1982 version of Cat People, starring Natasha Kinski. Again, taking place in Louisiana bayous, she is the spitting image of Simone. We can see here that the truck driven by the cook Lena in Scooby-Doo is the same truck from the 1982 Cat People. In Scooby-Doo, this is the truck that the gang follows as they are lured to Moonscar Island. In Cat People, this is the truck used to drive to a bayou island that bears a striking resemblance to both Moonscar Island from Scooby-Doo and the real-life Avery Island. Here is the Bayou Island from Cat People compared to Moonscar Island from Scooby-Doo. And here is the Bayou Island from Cat People on the bottom compared to the real-life Avery Island on the top. The best way I can think to describe this film is that it is the adult version of Scooby-Doo Zombie Island, involving a wealthy, cat-worshipping cult that kills and buries people's bodies around the French Quarter of New Orleans. It has all the graphic violence and nudity that can only be implied by the children's movie.
Take a look. There's pieces of 3 or 4 bodies in there. Probably more buried around them.
Oh, God.
I expect Gallier killed them first, possibly as part of some ritual, then fed them to the leopard. We found some others too over the years. Mostly prostitutes, female runaways, half-eaten, genitals torn out.
But why?
Listen, who knows?
Alongside co-star Malcolm McDowell, in this movie, the mask is completely removed, and we are openly told the real beliefs and rituals of this supposed 2,000-year-old fertility and death cult, all set to the music of David Bowie.
Long ago, our ancestors sacrificed their children to the leopards. The souls of the children grew inside the leopards until the leopards became human. We were gods then. We are an incestuous race. We can only make love with our own. Otherwise, we transform. And before we can become human again, we must kill. Welcome home.
So the housekeeper in this film is a woman named Famale. Now Famale is arrested halfway through the movie, charged with murder and being the leader of a voodoo ritual cult that practices human sacrifice. Her character is supposed to represent the real life and crimes of Clementine Barnabit. Clementine Barnabit was arrested in 1911, charged with the ritual murders of 17 people. She later confessed to over 35 murders. Allegedly, she was part of a voodoo ritual cult known as the Church of Sacrifice, and the strange ritual murders continued even after she was imprisoned. She was released from jail just 11 years after confessing to these horrible crimes, and she was never seen or heard from again. This infamous documented case of ritual human sacrifice is the basis of the voodoo story that is Scooby-Doo Zombie Island in Iberia Parish, Louisiana, where the children's movie seemingly takes place, is one of the real-life crime scenes from the trial. This zombie at the back of the group represents the voodoo monster from the 1957 film Voodoo Woman. The underground room where the voodoo rituals are performed in Voodoo Woman is recreated perfectly as the underground room where the rituals occur in Scooby-Doo Zombie Island, with Velma even adding at the end,
Looks to me like a place for voodoo rituals.
In this film, we are shown how human sacrifice victims are turned into zombies through the power of voodoo and Western medicine. We are also shown how the movements and actions of people are controlled by their voodoo dolls, the exact same as in Scooby-Doo.
Get up. Go to the end of the room and come back.
Next up on our list, we have the 1992 film Netherworld, again taking place on an island in the Louisiana bayou. The island, of course, has the mansion, references to cat worship, voodoo cults, zombies, and everything else. This mansion obviously closely resembles the house from Scooby-Doo Zombie Island. This house in real life is known as the Burnside Plantation, and it is featured in many of these Scooby-Doo Zombie Island connected movies, such as Moon of the Wolf and Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, just to name a few. The plot of this movie is about a young man who inherits his father's estate after he dies, and in his will he instructs his son on how to resurrect him as a zombie from the dead. This movie goes into incredible detail about the voodoo ritual practices associated with resurrecting the dead. And during the ritual, for a brief second, we are actually shown a small statue of Bast. The rituals shown in this movie involve the use of feathers from a cardinal. The director has stated in interviews it was illegal to use real cardinals for the film, but all the caged birds and the red feathers shown in the movie are supposed to represent cardinals. As you can see here, during the ritual, a picture of a cardinal is clearly shown on the table. People under the possession of the voodoo priestess in this movie are shown with cardinal feathers stuck in their heads. Now, if we take a look at this scene from Scooby-Doo, where they run into the gardener who is seemingly possessed, as they run away, we are shown the only bird in the entire film, and it is, of course, a cardinal. Ultimately, this bird in Scooby-Doo is meant to represent the red bird at the end of Netherworld that has the soul of the deceased father trapped inside of it.
Good morning, Father.
This zombie of a woman dressed in all yellow is supposed to represent the character of Julissa from the Boris Karloff film Isle of the Snake People. Taking place on a zombie-infested bayou island in Louisiana, this movie openly shows and tells us the rituals and local history associated with Damballa voodoo worship, as well as the process by which these victims are turned into zombies.
But what are these zombies?
Oh, it's a voodoo superstition. They're supposed to be the walking dead, raised from their graves by magic and put to work in the cane fields, like slaves.
Against the day when Baron Samedi will be invoked to lead them.
Uncle Carl, what would it take to invoke this Baron Samedi? It says here, an ultimate act of horror.
Tradition says that Damballa, who is the servant of Baron Samedi, must produce a human sacrifice. Then Baron Samedi will appear.
In the scene where the gang drives to Moonscar Island, we are shown for a brief second this old broken down car on the side of the road. This is the car from the 1943 film Revenge of the Zombies. This movie takes place in the Louisiana bayous. It has the island, it has the mansion on the island, it's about zombies and voodoo. There's almost too many connections to list with this one. So obviously the car, both are 1942 Buick Centuries, very easy to identify due to the unique waterfall-style grille, split front windshield, and two-tone black and gray paint job. Next, we have this tall zombie representing Dr. Max Heinrich. He is a German scientist fleeing World War II and working with the German government to create an army of zombies. He is shown wearing his trademark double-breasted jacket. The endings of the two movies are exactly the same, with the zombie curse being broken once the main antagonist is killed at midnight. There's simply too many connections to list about this film and this film's predecessor, King of the Zombies. I would recommend just watching both. In this scene, where the voodoo dolls are accidentally kicked close to an open flame, causing the gang to start melting, is actually an homage to a very famous scene in the 1932 film White Zombie.
Jesus! Madeline!
Now last but certainly not least, we have The Serpent and the Rainbow. Originally a book written by Wade Davis, it was made into a movie in 1988 and is based on the real-life experiences of the author himself. A Harvard scientist and anthropologist, Wade Davis was given the mission of going to Haiti in order to bring back scientific evidence the people were being turned into zombies. Obviously, this plot seems fictitious, but it's all real. Wade Davis was the first Western man to isolate the compound known as tetrodotoxin. In other words, this Harvard scientist literally discovered a powder made by indigenous witch doctors that can turn people into zombies, leading us to the biggest open secret of this entire mystery. This whole pattern of turning people into zombies is supposedly 100% real. Now comes the time where I reveal to you all the real-world secrets about this pirate, Morgan Moonscar. Morgan Moonscar gets his character's name from the very real pirate, Sir Henry Morgan. He is one of the most famous pirates to ever live and is the inspiration behind the Captain Morgan Rum Company brand. In real life, Sir Henry Morgan was well known for his brutality and raids on villages and cities, just like the one shown in the movie. Okay, now stick with me here. Morgan Moonscar might seem to take his name and character from Sir Henry Morgan. However, this is what is known as a dangle, or false clue, meant to throw the researcher off the trail of the real mystery. This is the same false information we see fed to the gang in the movie by the evil cat worshippers in order to throw the mystery solvers off the trail of the real story. This would also make sense historically, as in 1684, a book was published called A History of the Buccaneers of America, recounting the deeds of Sir Henry Morgan. This is the book shown to the gang in the movie. This real-life book was proven to be nothing more than a collection of lies, greatly embellishing the misdeeds of Sir Henry Morgan in order to make him look like a monster. The original publisher was even found guilty of libel in a 1680s court case, meaning this entire fictitious story told by the cat worshippers is nothing more than a loose retelling of Sir Henry Morgan's real-life raid on Panama and has nothing to do with Iberia Parish, Louisiana, or buried treasure. Morgan Moonscar actually gets his name and character from this man, Jean Lafitte. Jean Lafitte was a pirate and privateer who operated out of the same Louisiana bayous portrayed in the movie. Just like Morgan Moonscar, the real pirate Jean Lafitte buried an enormous treasure somewhere in the Louisiana bayou on one of its islands. This treasure has never been found, and people still search for it to this day.
Morgan Moonscar was rumored to have buried treasure on the island, though it was never found.
During the height of John Lafitte's piracy, he was one of the 10 wealthiest men in America, making this hidden treasure today potentially worth billions.
In the beginning of the movie, a pirate's ghost carves the words "Get out, beware" on the kitchen wall. Upon further inspection, Velma reveals under the plaster in the kitchen the fact that the haunted house was built out of the wood of an old ship called the Maelstrom.
What are you doing to my kitchen? Jinkies. Guess I got carried away.
In the French Quarter of New Orleans at 613 Esplanade Ave, we have the Jean Lafitte House. Well known for being haunted by many restless spirits, it was discovered when the old plasterwork was peeled back that the house was actually made of old ship timbers. It was also discovered that the house had a secret underground tunnel, a detail also included in the haunted house from the movie.
The bayou casts a spell all its own, and no matter how hard you try to solve its mysteries, it always keeps something hidden.
Alright guys, so I have a lot more secrets about this movie. I've only scratched the surface here, and this video turned out to be a half-hour long. If you want more Scooby-Doo Zombie Island secrets or have any questions, feel free to ask and I'll try my best to answer them. This investigation is still ongoing, and if anyone out there can identify this fisherman, most likely from a zombie, voodoo, and/or werewolf film made before 1998, please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content, and feel free to share my videos anywhere there may be movie schizos lurking. Thanks again.